what happened suddenly that this migration happened. Now, I want you to know that I want you to take a little look. This is horribly chopped up, but this is Sweden. And I want you to see what happened in Sweden. After it's Sweden, where the people are the happiest people on earth. So look at what happened to Sweden by being magnanimous with their migration. Watch.
The Swedish welfare state is world famous. Sweden's quality of life, public health, and educational performance rank amongst the best in the world. They have relatively high equality rates and low poverty rates, and they consistently rank amongst the happiest people on earth. At the height of the migrant crisis in 2015, Swedes showed incredible compassion and opened their country. This led the number of asylum seekers to increase substantially in the mid-2010s, but that's where it went wrong. They disproportionately ended up in poor neighborhoods, where over the years, parallel societies emerged. First and second generation immigrants are now 9 times more dependent on government welfare, and almost half of them is unemployed. Immigrants are often segregated in poor communities. In the most extreme cases, like the Stockholm suburb Rinkeby, nearly 90% of the population has an immigration background. This led to social exclusion and in turn to gang formation. Last year in September, Sweden had a record number of monthly fatal shootings. It started with the murder of a 58-year-old woman in Uppsala, who turned out to be the mother of one of Sweden's gang leaders. The police suspected that his former partner commissioned the attack, and the two gangs have been at war ever since. The leaders of these gangs live in Iraq, Lebanon, and Turkey, and they use apps like Signal and Telegram to recruit freelance criminals. An apple emoji means throwing a grenade, a water pistol, murder. Copenhagen lies just a bridge away from Sweden, where gang-related crime has been spiraling out of control.
Sverige ska bli bra igen.
This led in 2022 to the first right-wing government to be elected since the 1930s. Sweden and Denmark in recent years were polar opposites with regards to immigration policy. Denmark was unusually strict and wanted to do the bare minimum, whereas Sweden had some of Europe's most generous asylum policies. But Sweden's new right-wing government is taking a U-turn, and they're looking at Denmark for inspiration.
Vi ligger i praktiken 10-15 år efter Danmark.
Well, it's like inviting your family over for the holidays. You count how many seats you have, and that's how many people you invite. And that's it.
The question is why? Why in Iraq, Turkey, Lebanon? Think about this.
It's votes. They want to make them citizens for voting.
Well, it backfired on them, right?
Of
because
course, but they're always backfire on them.
Poland, Italy, Sweden, they all got far right, hard right governments because of this migration stuff. So, I mean, at some point, right, somebody's got to say, "Oh, this didn't work,"
because that's dumb. They are
really,
literally that stupid.
So you think that is just they were trying to get people to vote?
They were trying to get them as citizens in here to wipe out the right population.
I think it was more nefarious.
Then they become dependent on the government. When you're dependent on the government, because the Americans and the citizens of the countries are starting to learn that the government's no good. But to these people letting them in, the government is God. They're everything because they have nothing else.
Yeah. Well, I think that Ralph is.
They didn't realize that all these criminals were going to come in. Venezuela have been saying.
They absolutely realized it. That's the whole thing. If you destabilize a nation, then you can easily take control of their government. So who wants control of our government? Who wants these European nations destabilized? These European nations with democracy are a thorn in the sides of authoritarian, totalitarian regimes. So who is that? Russia, Lebanon, Afghanistan, China. This is, these are dictators that want to destabilize European governments, because if if democracy in the broad word, right, democracy, voting rights, human rights exist, then people want that, and they push their government to get that or to do that. But if there's nobody doing that, then dictators could live very happily for many, many years. That's the whole thing, and this is really nefarious. This is widespread. I have a few more. Good evening, ladies, and the migrant crisis must be dealt with very soon. It's too late. They just arrested a Chinese national who came here on a student visa in 2012 and was supposed to go home in 2013. Still here. Got arrested in 2022. We don't know why, but was let out again. And the only reason that he's now in custody is because he was buying weapons. He was buying war weapons and information. And the people that he was buying it from snitched on him to the federal government and the FBI, CIA. Turns out he was spying for North Korea. He opened up a business in North Korea, and Kim Jong-un gave him $2 billion US for it. Think about that. It's crazy. Jen is always correct. She's always correct. They're getting kickbacks. 100% they're getting kickbacks. And I guarantee that those idiot generals, what was it? Silly Millie was getting plenty of kickbacks too. That's why he left all that shit in Afghanistan. That's why he said to leave all that shit in Afghanistan. I mean, really, you're not going to fly it, put a tank of gas in a chopper and fly it out to a place so that it's secure? No, we're going to planes. We're going to leave them all there. Are you kidding me?
It's like the 20-year-old Generation Z mentality. Like my son, when he moved out of his dorm room with his brand new sheets and comforters and everything, he left everything there so he didn't have to pack it.
Yeah,
and I had to buy all new stuff.
if only it was that simple. But if he was selling it to the Taliban, then he got the money.
Well, knowing
my nice secret offshore account.
He probably did.
Yeah. Yeah. The illegals did destroy those hotels. And you know what? They're never going to recuperate because now that's New York. That's New York now. And that, I mean, you know,
Miami recuperated and now it's back in the gutter. But they recouped after 1981. In the 90s, it was
like this, Jen. It was in 1981. It was not like this. It has never been like this in my 61
well,
years.
before the Cubans, it was not Somal. They were from
Haitians.
The Haitians, and then it was the Cubans. You couldn't walk
Cubans first, then the Haitians. Then
the Haitians were before the Cubans.
Okay.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
Whatever the situation is that it was never like this. Ever, where the government was flying people in using an app, making them all legal immediately, and then settling them in all over the country to form gangs.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, yeah, they came here with gangs already formed. Now, the amazing thing is that we couldn't give them working papers. And that's another thing. You want them here to become, but you can't give them working papers when they get here. You refuse to do that so that they can work legally. Why?
Once you do that, once you give them working papers.
But I understand that. But what I'm saying is once they got here, then there was the fight of, no, we're not giving you working papers right now. It's going to take this amount of time. So why? So that they're depending on the government. They're depending on the funds that are given to them.
And each state is different, right? As far as whether you can work or you can't work. But this was a free-for-all. If this was, we have immigration policy in the United States. And as that other gentleman rightly said in the video, it's dependent on your social network, your family, people who are going to take responsibility for you.
And it should be, if you commit a crime, a huge crime, then the family that brought you in is also going to be charged with the crime. See how easy that's going to be, bringing your cousin from Venezuela in.